It's the Eagle Forum with your host, Gary Shorman.
Hi, everyone. Welcome to the Forum on Eagle Television. We have a special guest all the way in from Washington, D.C., who's visiting our company here this week. Jim, welcome to our program.
Thank you, Gary. Glad to be here.
Jim Bonham is the president and CEO of the ESOP Association. ESOP Association stands for Employee Ownership Program, and Jim heads up the national group that takes care of ESOPs around the country. How many ESOPs are there, Jim?
Well, somewhere right around 7,000, about 6,900, 6,800. There are new ESOPs being formed every day. There are ESOPs that get sold every day. So the latest numbers for the Department of Labor are right around 6,900. I think 6,980 was the last number I saw.
And the ESOP Association represents?
Both the companies that have ESOPs, employee stock ownership plans, and all of the professionals who provide services to them. So the lawyers, the attorneys, the accountants, the professional trustees. So we provide services and membership to both sides of the equation.
Well, what's interesting here, and Jim is here visiting our company, for a couple of reasons. One's we're an ESOP. He's learning about ESOPs in his new role. I'm also involved on the national board and chair this year of the ESOP Association. And Eagle has had an ESOP since 1998. So we've been in that process of employee ownership. And so you're taking the tour. You've been visiting with Eagle employee owners. You've been taking some tours of our company and doing some things. But how did you get involved with an ESOP? Because
well, yeah, it's well, first of all, it's really a pleasure for me to be out here in Hayes and visiting with Eagle Communications and Eagle and the employees, because it helps me better appreciate and understand the experience inside the companies and the experience that the employees are having and how it has shaped the culture and the product that's delivered to the community and to the customers. And it really does make a difference. I've worked with employee-owned companies. I've worked with a lot of publicly traded companies and privately held companies. And I can tell you hands down, the culture and the product that is delivered from employee-owned companies is superior in almost every respect. That's at least been my experience in 25 years working in the private sector. What's really interesting to me about ESOPs is that they genuinely provide value to the employees that you don't get working at a different company. Most companies will offer some kind of a 401k benefit, but at employee-owned companies, almost all of them also offer this retirement plan that is an employee stock ownership plan where you actually have some ownership in the business. And what's happening now at Eagle is that the real value of that, the value of the contributions that the employees have made through their own skill set, through their ingenuity, through their creativity, through their dedication, they're now reaping the benefits of that as part of the company has been sold and the ESOP is being reformed. So it's a really exciting experience to come here and talk to the people at Eagle.
Well, one of the things I know when you got into this is you have some experience with your family getting started early on. And you and I have talked about this before, but you look at the history of companies and how they get formed, even the history of Eagle, how it has formed and gone through different phases.
Yeah.
You found that also in personal experience.
I did, and you had asked me that before, and I sort of got all excited about talking about Eagle. But for me, I made the decision to leave. I had an advocacy practice and public policy practice at a national law firm, and for me, the decision to come join the ESOP Association as its president and CEO 7 months ago was pretty easy because my family has a history with employee ownership. It goes back a long time. My grandfather, I'm from Wyoming, so I actually enjoy coming out to
There's a whole list of questions about how you made it from Wyoming to Washington, D.C., but let's stick with Wyoming for a second.
But my grandfather ran a chain of mercantile stores across southern Wyoming, and it was a challenge to manage these stores over such great distances. And he had developed a friendship with another gentleman who ran mercantile stores as well. They agreed not to compete against one another, And instead, they would collaborate a bit. And one of the issues that they were trying to tackle was how do you get each store, 100 miles apart to kind of run on its own and be self-sufficient. So they came up with this idea of selling part of the store to their employees. And so they tried it each in a store, and it worked well. And then pretty soon, over time, all of the stores became partially employee-owned. And when my grandfather decided to retire, he ended up selling his shares in his stores to his best friend at that point, this guy he'd been collaborating with. And they met once a month at this place called Little America, which is, if you've ever driven through southern Wyoming, it's middle of nowhere. And it's a fabulous restaurant and gas station. And they would meet there once a month on Sundays. And so when he sold his shares to his best friend at that point is a guy named James Cash Penney, or J.C. Penney. And those stores became the formation or the foundation for what later became the J.C. Penney chain. And that was sort of the model, was employee ownership of these stores. And that's how the original chain grew, was through employee ownership, until it went and became a publicly traded company. So for me, it was part of our family's history, part of our lore. So the opportunity to now attach my work to that legacy was really attractive.
So as a CEO of the association, what do you do? What's your job? What do you do? You're in D.C., but I know you do a lot of traveling.
Yeah, I do. And part of my job is to visit companies and to learn about how the ESOPs are working in those companies, and to provide some additional value, whether it's at the local level, the state level, the federal level. If there are parts of the laws that aren't working well, then we try to improve them, so that maybe a regulation needs to be issued, or maybe a regulation needs to be changed, so that employee owners can run their companies better. So that's part of what I do. Part of what I do is communicate to a larger audience the value of forming an employee stock ownership plan. We're at a point in our country right now that's really sort of fascinating, because we have a major generational change that's taking place, where the baby boomers are now starting to retire or have retired. And the millennial generation, I believe it's in the next 18 months, will become the majority of the workforce. At the same time, nationally, we're having a major debate and discussion about wealth and income, and how the average everyday employee or worker can become a larger participant in the place where they work and get more benefit from it. That it seems like a lot of the benefit of work and income and wealth is going to a smaller and smaller portion of our society. Well, ESOPs and employee stock ownership gives a real opportunity to reconnect your average worker with what they do for a living. One of the things that I like to point out, and my friends over at the Realtors Association don't necessarily like this so much in Washington, but I point out that after World War II, the Realtors Association and the Mortgage Bankers Association did a really good job convincing America that the American dream was home ownership. And while we really do value owning our homes, I think as we're moving into the future, the real American dream is owning a stake or owning a share in the place where you work. Because then your job isn't just about getting a paycheck every 2 weeks. Your job is about investing your own ingenuity, your own smarts, your own skills into yourself, because you're gaining as the company grows. Yes, you're going to get a paycheck, but you're also gaining from the growth and the expansion and the market size of the company where you work. I think that should be the new American dream.
Well, I know when you travel and visit companies, that's one of the things that you get a chance to learn. What have you seen when you take those things of the American dream of owning a share in a place where you work and doing that? What have you seen? How have you seen that in action?
It's hands down, like I said before, I've worked with publicly traded companies, I've worked with very large privately held companies, and employee-owned companies. There is a difference in the culture. There is a difference in the pride of work and the pride of the product that they're producing. And what's amazing is, with ESOPs, It's across the board. There are employee stock ownership plans in just about any kind of business you can imagine. About 26% of ESOPs are in manufacturing, but another 17% are engineering and architecture firms, construction firms, landscape and architecture, communications, professional services. It's across the board, and that's one of the really cool things about it is it's not limited to just one type of business. It can be across the board. And so as I've traveled around and I've learned more about the businesses that have used an ESOP as a tool in their compensation package, as a tool to help their employees prepare for retirement, what it really does is it invests those employees in the place where they work. And I'll be honest, for a lot of those employees, at first they don't really believe it. It's like, well, what do you mean? There's this plan that, what's the catch? It's not like my 401k, because in a 401k, you have to put your own money in. And often a company will match it, but you're still putting money out of your paycheck in there for retirement savings. Same thing's true with stock options. In order to exercise the stock option, you have to pay money to buy the stock, and you can usually sell it for a premium above that, but you still have to put your money on the table. With an ESOP, it's the company you're getting shares of it. So not only are you getting your wages, but you're also getting equity. It's like everybody understands the concept of growing equity in your home. An ESOP is like growing equity in your job, so that when you leave, when you're vested, when you retire, you're able to take that equity with you and put it into your retirement, put it into your savings, make other investments. And that's just amazing.
One of the things that I know happens, you have all of this, it sounds so darn good.
Right.
How do you get started in an ESOP? What's day one? I mean, why wouldn't you hear that? Why wouldn't everybody want to have an ESOP?
Well, I mean, running an ESOP can be tricky. You're definitely entering into an area of regulation that many can find very complicated. But you start, most ESOPs are formed when there is a privately held business where the founder of that business has had a good long career, and they start thinking about, all right, what am I going to do with this business when I retire? What's my succession plan? And most of the founders that I've met and know, they look around and you really only have 2 or 3 options when you own a business and you're thinking about retiring. You can try to pass it on to your family or your kids. If you don't have kids to pass it on to, or your kids maybe don't want to participate, they have their own career, they live somewhere else, then you look to, well, can I sell the business? Often a business will get sold to a competitor. Often they'll get sold externally to the community, and often they'll get broken up. Somebody will come in and they'll take it apart and sell it to others. Sometimes they just close their doors. So most ESOPs are formed when those founders think, I've worked with all my employees, I've been rewarded well. I want them to have an opportunity now to share in the benefit of being entrepreneurs and being owners. So you start by creating a trust, and the trust will usually borrow money to purchase a portion or all of the company, and then the trust is managed by a professional independent trustee for the benefit of the employees. The federal government has recognized the value of employee ownership, so there are significant tax savings that can be accomplished by forming an ESOP. So what you would normally be paying to Uncle Sam in taxes actually go towards paying off that loan. Once the loan's paid off, then the ESOP continues to function, the company continues to operate. But like I said, it can be somewhat complicated. The easiest way to learn about it is to go to one of our websites.
I was going to say, part of the association goal is to not make it simple, but to at least make it easier to understand.
Right.
Tell me about your websites.
So we've got the ESOP Association we're a national trade association. We represent the companies and the businesses that support them. So you can go to ESOPassociation.org. There's a lot of information there that you can learn about employee ownership and employee stock ownership plans. We have, if you own a business and you're thinking about, well, maybe this is something that would make sense for us. We have 18 state and regional chapters all across the country. All of those chapters have local events. And usually for our conferences or our meetings, about 1/3 of the people are attending those for the first time. There isn't a meeting that happens nationwide where we don't have some new company that's thinking of forming an ESOP coming just to learn about it. So we have programming and courses and sessions designed just for those people who are exploring the formation of an ESOP. And then generally the next step is that you'll talk to, there are professional advisors out there who can help you gauge if your company is a good target or is a likely prospect to form an ESOP, and then you can go through the entire process. You can take anywhere from 6 months to a year to form an ESOP or to start the process to create a valuation for your company, and then to go through the financing process and the formal process of forming a trust. But once it's done, you continue on. It's a great system.
Well, ESOPassociation.org.
Right.
And you get more information there. Jim, I want to take a break, but I want to come back and talk about a few things that are happening in D.C. Those that are out watching, we live here in the Midwest. We know what it's like here. You live in D.C. I want to find out a little bit more about what's happening there. We're going to take a break. Back with more with Jim Bonham and the ESOP Association after this.
Be one of our weekly winners through football season with the Wolf Furniture Gallery's Gridiron Glory. Players go to HaysPost.com to pick weekly winners in the NFL. Prizes will vary. The best at season end will claim the grand prize, a complete living room set. Register at HaysPost.com in the contest section. Football season could pay off big with the Wolf Furniture Gallery's Gridiron Glory. Presented by Wolf Furniture Galleries, Eagle Marketing Solutions, HaysPost.com, and Eagle Radio.
Is someone in here with us?
Ghost Hunters is back with a new team, better tech, and more answers.
This is my favorite part of the night.
We had to flee our home.
I've been doing this for 30 years. I've chased the truth. Only with the truth can I truly help someone.
Whoa!
Ghost Hunters returns Wednesdays at 9 on A&E.
Have you considered the value that quality video content can bring to your business? Mid-America Productions can provide professional visual media to effectively engage your target audience. We're a full-service video production company serving Salina and surrounding regions for over 35 years. Whether you need videos for promotion, sales, training, fundraising, or other purposes, our experienced team can deliver for you. Find us online at mapvideo.net. That's mapvideo.net.
It's the A Street Liquor Top Tailgate Contest on HaysPost.com. Show your Tiger Tailgate crew flashing the A Street Liquor Tailgate Cup and you could win. Don't have a cup? Then get to 8th Street Liquor to get your tailgating supplies and get a cup for free. Okay, so you have the cup. Get to the game. Grab your crew, snap a picture, and enter on HaysPost.com. The picture with the most votes wins a prize from A Street Liquor. It's the Top Tailgate Contest on HaysPost.com by A Street Liquor, where the good times and tailgating start.
Welcome back to the second half of our forum program here on Eagle Television. If you have any ideas, suggestions, if you have any guests like Jim that are in town visiting your business, or someone you'd like us to have on the program, let me know. My email is gary.shorman@eaglecom.net. I'd like to hear from you. Jim Bonham is our guest. Jim is president and CEO of the ESOP Association. Jim, one of the things you do is you live in D.C. Those of us that, we sit around here, and I had a chance to travel a few weeks ago, and You go through the country, most people aren't talking about what's happening in D.C., yet you turn on the news channels and it sounds, you've heard, is there a swamp there? What's going on? You live there every day. What's it like to live in D.C. every day?
It's funny, I actually like coming out of D.C. as much as being there. I think D.C. is a wonderful place to live. I think it's a pretty amazing community. And one of the things that's frustrating to me is that I believe that most people get this strange representation of not only our government, but the people and the players who are involved in Washington. And I equate it to sort of like a funhouse mirror, where you can look at it and it's sort of curved and there are parts that are distorted and warped, and there's a resemblance, but it's not reality. And I think that most of the people in Washington, they get so warped and twisted through the media filter and through, on both ends of the political spectrum. The caricature doesn't really represent reality. Most of the people in Washington that I've worked with in 25 years there are real, they're genuine, hardworking, patriotic people who care about the future of their country. And the differences are not nearly as extreme as what gets represented in the media. So, for me, the opportunity to come out of Washington and visit with everyday people who really do care about the future of the country, the frustration that I see in terms of what they see and hear, you almost want to say, well, that's not what it's really like. Come and visit. Go and talk to your representative in Congress. They're not these horrible people that sometimes they get painted out to be.
Well, it's a beautiful community. You go there, it's beautiful, and you just see some of those things when you walk down the mall and you see the buildings, you realize the history. Well, we just didn't get here by accident. A lot of things went into that, and it's not the only crazy time. Sort of you can go back through history, and there was a lot of crazy times that went on, and there'll be more as we go down the road. But living there every day gives you that insight, so I appreciate that. What do you do for fun when you watch DC? Do you watch news, or what do you do?
Most of the time, I'm trying to keep up with my kids.
But, tell us about your family.
My wife is an attorney and a very accomplished one. She's a bioethicist as well as a very competent and capable investigatory attorney. She actually just went back into private practice after working for the National Institutes of Health for almost 2 decades. Then I have a sophomore in college, I have an 8th grader, and I have a 6th grader, and all 3 of them are very smart, capable, independent-minded kids. So
I can't imagine that.
They keep me busy. And then for me personally, I have more hobbies than I like to admit, but what I'm most enamored with in the last few years has been competitive sailing. So I do a lot of sailing, not as much in the last few months as I generally like to, but hopefully swinging into next year and the next spring after I shed a few pounds and get back down to racing weight, I'll be racing sailboats again.
So if someone out there is watching, racing, boy, that's something, you see America's Cup here, you see some of those. What kind of boat do you race, and can you watch on TV?
Watching sailing on TV is actually getting a lot more accessible because we have this wonderful thing called a drone, and they figured out how to have a drone chase a sailboat down the race course, which is a lot more interesting than a camera, on the shore trying to shoot these boats off in the distance.
2 miles away.
Yeah, you have no idea what they're doing. But it's racing. The boat that I have been racing is called a J24. The J24 is the most widely raced keelboat in the world. About 5,500 of them globally right now. In fact, the World Championship is starting this weekend, and my boat and crew will be competing in it.
How fun is that? Has anyone ever fallen off your boat? Or just close?
Many have, and one person in particular, I won't mention his name, Gary, came real close to falling off last summer. But fortunately, he was very graceful and was able to get back on quick.
Yeah.
Although I think he did get a little wet.
Yeah. Well, it's fun. You take a look at what you do there and on the national level. I know you made changes in your world to participate in employee ownership.
Yeah.
And appreciate the work you do, because it does take a lot of travel. I know with family what that means. A lot of travel, a lot of visits, a lot of speeches in front of other people. So appreciate the work you do for the ESOP Association. And you have a couple big events coming up. There's one coming up in November.
That's right, November 13th to the 15th in Las Vegas. This is going to be our big annual employee-owned 2019 conference and trade show for ESOPs. It's going to be at the Paris Hotel and Casino in Las Vegas. We're expecting it to be the largest crowd, the largest gathering of employee owners in the history of the country. We have a terrific lineup of national keynote speakers, and then we also offer, this year it'll be almost 75 individual sessions to help train employees, to help train CEOs and executives on how to use employee ownership to provide greater value to your customers, to create a better community, both inside your company and externally to your company. And it's a pretty exciting opportunity. So we're very much looking forward to that. And then of course we do a big national conference in Washington, D.C. every spring. And that'll be sort of the next really big event that we do. But nationally for the association, we have almost 13,000 people a year will come through one of our conferences or training sessions, which when you think about it is a huge number of people who are interacting with our association. But it's important because right now nationwide there are about 14.8 million people, million Americans, who benefit from an employee stock ownership plan. They have an ownership in the companies where they work. Our goal over the next 10 years is to dramatically increase that number because as more employees have a stake in their company, it provides greater stability for communities. You know, companies that form ESOPs don't tend to pick up and leave because the owners live right there in the community. And during the recession in 2008, we've done a lot of research, and employee-owned companies were 7 times more likely to retain their employees compared to a non-employee-owned company. And there was another study that among millennials right now, millennials who work at employee-owned companies are 97% better off in their retirement planning than millennials who work for anybody else, whether it's the government or privately held or publicly traded companies. Their retirement is 97% ahead of where their peers are. So it's these conferences are real opportunities for people to learn more about employee ownership and to make sure that their companies are making full use of it.
Jim, thanks for sharing your story around the country. Thanks for sharing the story here and visiting us here in Hayes at Eagle.
Thank you. Glad to be here.
Jim Bonham, who is the President and CEO of the ESOP Association. Thanks you for watching as well. Programs brought to you by Hayes Med and by Eagle Communication, our community connected.